Tenants of an Altamonte Springs apartment complex say they have been living in limbo. Many of them were moved into hotels after the city deemed 2 out of 7 buildings there unsafe. We first told you about their situation last month when they first moved out.
Now, some of them are saying they're being asked to pay for their stay. That's starting tomorrow. I want to go ahead and go live now to Spectrum News 13's Bryanna Howard in Altamonte Springs. Bryanna, you spoke with one man who lost the place that he called home and his job.
Yes, Tammy and Curtis. So I spoke with Stan Lerner, who moved into this apartment complex just a few months ago after struggling to find stable housing. He thought that moving here, he'd have a fresh start. But a few months later, he found himself packing up again after the city of Altamonte Springs deemed his apartment unsafe to live in. Stan Lerner says the problems inside his apartment started months ago, long before anyone was told to leave.
And then by July 4th, the whole ceiling came down, and they pretty much came out, did the bare minimum, put up like a ratty piece of cardboard, basically.
In September, Altamonte Terrace Apartments moved Lerner and his wife, along with other residents, to an on-site hotel due to what the apartment management described as substantial structural damage. But Lerner says that temporary fix led him to miss days of work, eventually losing his job.
So I had to miss work a second time because I only had a day and a half to get all of our stuff out then.
The complex initially promised to cover hotel stays for 2 weeks. Then residents would be able to return back to their apartments. On October 4th, Stan, along with other residents, received a notice that their leases would be terminated effective immediately. In the same letter, it states that the hotel checkout is Friday, October 17th at 11 a.m. The letter also says that if residents wish to come back to the hotel, they'll have to pay the hotel directly for their stay.
One of the property managers here said that it runs about like a daily rate of run about $1,400 a month total, which is about $150 more than what our lease is for.
Attorney Mitchell Goldman, who was not directly involved with this case, says the law is not clear on who's responsible when buildings are deemed unsafe, but management could face consequences if neglect played a role.
It would tend to show that it's an ownership problem, and the ownership was negligent, maybe grossly negligent, because they knew it was a problem.
He says cases like this reveal a gap in Florida law that leaves tenants with few options when their homes are condemned.
It's not adequately addressed, in my opinion. We've really hit a hole in the statutes.
In the statement, management at Altamonte Terrace Apartments said they waived rent for September and October, forgiven past due balances, provided temporary hotel accommodations, and offered moving assistance, calling it, quote, steps that go beyond what is required by law. Residents like Stan say these promises don't erase what they've lost or the uncertainty that still lies ahead. I reached out to City Manager Frank Martz to see when the city would be back to this apartment complex to inspect the rest of the buildings. Unfortunately, he says that's up to property management. But so far, property management doesn't have a timeline as to when that's going to happen or as to when these residents can return back home. Back to you, Tammy and Curtis.
All right. Thank you for that live report.